Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly horoscope. Today we're going to be looking at the astrology of December 28th, 2021 through January 4th of 2022. So happy new year. My name is David and I'm your astrologer from HC Astrology. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all your support, liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing these videos. It all means a lot to me. It really means a lot to me and it goes a long way. So yeah, before I kind of dive in, I just want to announce again that this is going to be your last chance to book a consultation with me using my winter discount before the year is up. So there's only a few more days, 4 more days to book now to claim the discount. So if you want to claim that discount, which is you get the full chart consultation, so that's an 1.5-hour consultation. You get it for the cost of a 1-hour consultation. So you save €50 and you get 30 minutes extra on top. Plus, like, all my consultations come with a big package of lots of information, and the big consultation comes with a lot of extra info. So if you want to book something or you want to order something for a friend, just contact me directly. Or if you want to book something for yourself in advance, it doesn't have to be that you book a consultation before the year's up. It just, you have to claim it before the year's up. So head over to my website, use the booking service, use the booking scheduler system I have. Mention that you're looking for the holiday special when you book the basic reading, or contact me directly and we can schedule something if you wanted to get it for a friend or like a gift or something. So yeah, the discount's only gonna last till next Saturday. So now's the time to book to get the discount. All right, so that's enough for my spiel, but let's get into the astrology. So let me bring up transits for the next days. So there is quite a lot going on this week, actually. Biggest thing happening is the Jupiter ingress into Pisces, which is happening on Tuesday. I'm reading also from Toronto. So just kind of switch your location. Some of the timings are a little different, but the transits are all going to be the same. This is background noise. Transits, like the greater story kind of thing. So Jupiter's ingress into Pisces. Now, we already kind of experienced that earlier this year for a bit of a preview about what 2022 will have to offer in terms of Jupiter ruled things. So expansion, growth, prosperity, visions of the future, plans, bigger picture, and things like that. Those are going to go into new territories again, where there's a lot more resource for those visions of the future and progress we want to make to expand. Another thing happening this week is that Mercury is going to be conjoining with Venus, who's retrograde. So there's something about that Venus retrograde story still going on. It's still really important. It's really, the week opens up with that, with the moon square to all the planets in Capricorn. So there's something about us maybe communicating something about that's been going on, coming into contact with that, you know, loving words, loving communications, but maybe also something that's more about discerning something, questioning something, weighing something, making an exchange of some kind. Other big things this week, we can see, of course, Mars is going to sextile with Saturn. It's not a humongous thing, but it is some positive collaboration between the two malefics. There's definitely some room for getting something done, taking some action, using discernment, being disciplined in our action, taking some initiation on something. So I'll get more into that. Mercury's also conjoining with Pluto. So again, related again to this Pluto, to the Venus retrograde story. Now Mercury, the planet of communication, the planet of learning, of information, is conjoining with Pluto, which is, you know, transforming things, revealing things, bringing things up to the surface that are difficult to deal with, but have a regenerative process. We also get trine with Uranus, so something kind of positive going on there in the way we're inventing things, or the way that we're learning to understand maybe the outsider story going on. Mercury also will ingress into Aquarius, and then we get that Capricorn new moon. So there is quite a bit going on this week. I'm going to try and go into everything one thing at a time, but try to put more focus on those bigger things. So let's start the week off. Tuesday, December 28th, 2021. The week really starts with the moon, or the report really starts with the moon still square to the stellium in Capricorn. So moon is in that position where we were at, months and months ago, when there was, during Libra season, when there was a Libra stellium square to Pluto. Now there's this Capricorn stellium, moon is there for the first time since the sun is ingress into Capricorn. So now we're coming at it from this angle of like, okay, where's the balance? Where are things off? We're feeling a little bit more of what Venus is going through, that there's something off, something's out of balance. We still need to go through a process of readdressing things, re-intimating with things. This is going to come up more and more through the week, and we're really feeling that. Maybe we're coming into more of a relationship, of the reality of relationships, of the reality that now's not maybe the time for some things to work, or some of the things that we've been expecting that kind of went back on themselves in terms of things that were bonding, things that were harmonizing, things that were beautiful, things that we wanted to attract into our lives. We have to go back over. And with the moon, since the moon went into Libra on Sunday into Monday, we really have been feeling that more, I think, just like connecting more with the reality that things related to Venus right now are not working the way we want them to. We have to get realistic with that. We have to be more discerning with that. We have to try and see things truthfully, weigh them out, maintain some image on some level, because we're having a hard time maintaining that image. Our composure is off. We're having to step away from things that we don't necessarily want to. We're trying to make a decision. And that can be challenging, because it feels like maybe we're in a bit of paralysis by analysis. We feel like there's a process we want to go through, but there's still things that are happening. The sun's now in Capricorn. Things are moving forward regardless if we want them to or not. There's things going on in the world that maybe are not in line with our personal desires, personal plans, personal directions of things. That's creating more tension between certain parts of our lives and maybe the outside world too, with the Saturn Uranus square still in 0-degree range, so they're not completely out of range yet. And so there's just like an ongoing tension with that. And with moon in square to this Capricorn stellium, now we're kind of like feeling that more. We're feeling that we have to evaluate the situation differently, and we have to evaluate maybe some of our expectations, some of our desires, some of our wants, the things we've been trying to attract into our lives differently. And I think with the sun, it's good that the sun is there. The sun is going to be able to provide some extra clarity, but as the sun moves closer and closer to Venus starts to combust. It may be that, some of those topics start to boil up, start to get even more heated up, or not seen clearly, or, and I think with the moon kind of making the square right now, seeing it from this Venus perspective, it's seeing like, okay, have to make a decision right now. Things are not necessarily about me right now, but it doesn't make it any easier, right? So there's something about having to be a bit cold cut with things, but with some of the other players going on in the scene, we want to push forward with things and to make things that we want happen. But it's like things are kind of getting unraveled. I was thinking the other day about Venus is the bond maker, and when Venus is retrograde, things get unbonded. And I think with moon moving through that Venus ruled sign now, one that it doesn't have Uranus involved, it's not involved really in a harsh way to the Saturn Uranus square, so it's not so caught up in a big tension. it's seeing things from that Venus perspective, that's like trying to understand that, you know, the way things have been going are not working, and we have to try and find a way to readdress, re-engage, re-intimate with the problem or the situation at hand. So that, you know, is also going to, on some level, help us to, if we can make some distance from that on some level, try to get a perspective on it, make a decision, it will help us to get re-engaged, bring some additional support to some of the bigger plans we have, the potentialities for the future, the way we're seeing things move into new territory, because that's going to be in better alignment with Jupiter. It's going to bring more support to that shift, to things where we're seeing maybe things going to a bigger place for us, where there's more growth possibility, where there's more grace to be had, more resources for things we want to see expand, new territories, new faith to, or new territories to present themselves, where we can find new faith and things like that. And so if we can try to understand that, you know, we can't just fix this Venus retrograde problem. It's not going to just get fixed if we do one fatal swoop, you know what I mean? Mars is not in alignment with it either. So it's not like we can take some direct action on something, even if we wanted to instigate some sort of solution. We have to try and focus on things that are working, things that are going forward, things that are getting bigger, maybe expanding, getting better, or at least bringing some sort of growth or seeing a bigger picture of things. So yeah, whoops. So as the day goes through, the moon moves into Scorpio, right? And once the moon moves into Scorpio, we get that mood and energetic shift. Moon moves into its sign of fall or depression. So there's this loss of comfort and rootedness that becomes kind of unrooted, vigilant, overly sensitive, maybe even suspect. There's a higher chance for falling into maybe emotional pitfalls, making decisions that are more instinctual, fear-based, maybe even severing on some kind. This may be a destructive transit, activating again the Saturn-Uranus square, but also we will be seeing a lifting of spirits as Jupiter moves back into its domicile Pisces really shortly after that. I think also with moon moving into Scorpio, it's in better alignment now with this Venus retrograde story. And although it's coming from maybe a more vigilant or sensitive space, a really a place that feels like, you know, the chaos or the destruction, things are not working, it's at least in a way in a more common ground between that story. So it may be that this is a place where vulnerability is going to work to find common ground in things that, you know, if things are not working in terms of that Venus retrograde story, this is maybe a space where honesty will prevail. So we can also look at what's going on with Mars, the ruler of Scorpio, who is about to, I think by tomorrow, will be hitting that 12-degree marker of Sagittarius, which is where that most recent solar eclipse happened in Sag. So this could be signaling on some level our instinctual feelings regarding what that trigger point was all about, calling us back to that eclipse, the release we went through, the decision we made, the direction and vision we wanted to commit with, the drive for an inspiring new shift of perspective. You know, now the moon is also closing up its cycle. It's getting closer to the south node, which just, you know, the nodes just, also, by the way, I use the mean nodes, not the true nodes. And so that's why the nodes have already moved into Taurus and Scorpio. So the moon is moving closer and closer to the south node. You know, understanding that things are decreasing. There's a lack of energy. There's a lack of emotional capacity. There's a feeling of defeat on some level. You know, so there's this sense that what has and has not worked out since the eclipse is getting greater. You know, what has severed, what has been destroyed, the chaos that does not match our dreams of a better life or world for ourselves, the hope we are battling to hold on to. there's this destabilization to Scorpio lunar periods, one that is calling us back, calling us to cut something out, to cull something, to purge something, cleanse something, to do some investigation, to trust our guts that cutting this out will do something to free us for what we want to pursue with our enthusiasm for a better future. Especially with Jupiter getting ready to move into Pisces, then we'll be in better alignment with the moon too. So something about sensing that shift, that change happening, sensing that things with that Sag eclipse, what is working out, what isn't working out. And I think it's also like calling us back to Scorpio season a bit about what became really chaotic during that time, what sort of emotional challenges we had to go through. And now we're feeling some of that again. We're feeling that in relation to some of the other things that have gone on. So this is about making the call to set something free that we really don't maybe want to let go of. This could be about our sensitivity and vulnerability to cut to the heart of a topic. And through common ground, again, like I said, it's in better alignment with the stellium and Cap, so it can find a little bit better ground in terms of relationships, communicating, the story so far, the focus of things, the focus of the story right now. Find common ground to meet the problem at hand by doing what's best for our maybe emotional or our spiritual needs, especially with Jupiter getting ready to move into Pisces. So we can actually go forward a little bit, and just as the day ends, it's basically, I think it's like 11:15 or something like that, but basically we can move already into Wednesday. Jupiter moves into Pisces, right? So we just saw like Jupiter's now in Pisces, the sign, it's watery domicile. So Jupiter rules Pisces, Saturn rules Aquarius, Mars rules Scorpio. So anyway, this is a big move. This is big. We already kind of got a preview of that early in the year, but Jupiter is finally walking out of Saturn, walking out on the Saturn ruled signs. It's leaving Aquarius, it's entering Pisces for good. I mean, it's going to go into Aries at some point in the spring, but it's going to be back in Pisces. I think we get about 8 total months or something like that of Jupiter in Pisces. Don't quote me on that right now. So this is like no longer testing the waters, right? This is taking a deeper dive because Jupiter is going to be in Pisces for a longer period. Now, I've already gone over in some great detail what exactly Jupiter into Pisces is meaning for the most part during a report I made of the initial ingress of Jupiter into Pisces. But Jupiter would have retrograde, and that was between May and July. So I'm going to try and find a link for that. I'll put that in the description box if I can remember, for anyone who's interested in getting further details. Otherwise, main point I want to make is that Jupiter is picking up a big time dignity, moving back into its watery, oceanic domicile of Pisces. And if we can recall back to May, July of 2021, when Jupiter would have temporarily moved into Pisces, then we can get something of an idea of what sorts of thematic openness and bigness Jupiter will be growing in Pisces moving forward. So, this is a big move. It's also putting much more positive lightning effect on the whole of 2022 compared to 2021, and especially 2020. So this is really signaling to me that next year is going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit more buoyant, a little bit more potentials, a little bit more open, things moving into new territories, having more optimism, more vision of things to come rather than the way things are. Jupiter's finally leaving Saturn ruled signs. It's been in Saturn ruled signs for the last couple years, last few years. So after being in, and that means that Jupiter will be able to approach Jupiter ruled problems from a place where resources are plenty and the possibilities are fruitful, right? Still, I think it's important to point out maybe some of, not necessarily I want to be negative, but the downsides to Jupiter leaving Aquarius, right? So Jupiter leaves Aquarius, doesn't just leave Aquarius, leaves Saturn, right? Leaves Saturn alone. Saturn's now alone to deal with Aquarius problems. Saturn's now alone to deal with the Uranus square alone. The eclipses are going to happen across fixed signs next year too. So Saturn's going to be square to all that. There's going to be tension happening, right? So Saturn's alone to deal with Aquarius problems, which means that that grace that Jupiter is bringing, the proper judgment, maybe some serenity, potential generosity, that Jupiter was at least providing on some level, like even if it didn't seem like it, like maybe things could have been much worse. And Jupiter was there to try and bring grace to things, bring peace to things, give us a better perspective on things. Jupiter's not there anymore to support Saturn in maintaining control, right? To hold things together, keep things in line, maintain proper boundaries and systems of control. And Jupiter is, you know, and now Saturn's got to do that alone, and it's not going to be able to do that without Saturn ruled things, hardships, failures, trials and errors. You know, and as we face more and more, the realities of this new Aquarian kind of paradigm since the Great Conjunction there at the end of 2020, you know, it's not going to be settling necessarily in an entirely comfortable way. So Jupiter leaving Aquarius means that any of that grace available to help in that maintaining of control, it's walking out the door. And of course, Jupiter in Pisces is going to bring more optimism, abundance, potentials, but it also brings exaggerations into some other part of our life, one that is going to be detached, is going to be trying to escape, is going to be desiring some kind of transcendence from the mundane, from the hardships of the world we're living in today. Like there's so much, we've been dealing with some difficult things for the last years. Jupiter in Pisces is saying like, okay, let's do something else, right? Or let's make things feel better. Let's bring a lightness to things, right? And yeah, that's great. I agree. It's entirely a positive thing. But this is also being emphasized by the fact that Neptune is in Pisces, and Jupiter is going to conjoin with Neptune quite quickly, actually, within like the first months of 2022. And, you know, Neptune's this planet of confusion, illusion, otherworldliness, false realities, fantasies, meaning that though there's this great expansion happening, there's something that's really, things are really maybe opening up on some levels. There's this potential for new territories to emerge, new islands in the sea of life to present themselves. It could also mean that we're not seeing things entirely realistically. We're allowing for maybe a false optimism to emerge, opening the door to a great yearning for something more than the mundane to take control, right? You know, we want to just put rose-colored glasses on at this point. We've had enough. We want to move into bigger, more buoyant territories, but it doesn't mean that problems are going to go away, right? And we may be so entirely focused on the possibilities of things getting better that we're willing to ignore and tune out the reality of things remaining, you know, complicated, maybe even disappointed, maybe things starting to break on some level, right? Like Uranus is still in a square with Saturn all through next year. It's not going to go fully exact, but it's within degree, you know, engagement range, 3-degree range. And they are still square by sign, you know, that's not going to end until Saturn leaves Aquarius, which is not going to happen until 2023. So the reality is that Jupiter leaving Saturn behind, and with Saturn and Aquarius having full range of resources to do Saturn ruled things, and with Saturn still in this hard square with Uranus and Taurus, there's this new story revealing itself about that Aquarius Taurus square that is based in, you know, maybe destructive denial, that is so hell-bent on keeping things together, holding things on to bring things back to the way they were, right? Like Saturn's all about holding on to the past on some level, holding on to the way things are rather than the way things may go. And, you know, that's how Saturn reveals truth to us. That's how Saturn reveals wisdom to us, is that we have to understand that we, on some level, don't have control, right? And we have to surrender. And through that, we gain wisdom, but, you know, we have to first be defeated in order to surrender. So, and there may be this feeling that we can bring things back to 2019, but maybe we're not seeing things clearly. And when it continues to create tensions with Uranus, this planet of uncompromising change, it may be that the structures of control, Saturn, and order are in for a groundbreaking year ahead. So there could be a lot of breakthroughs happening, a lot of new potential changes to occur that have a lot of effect into the future, moving into the future, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be easy for everybody, right? There's still going to be some hardship. So I'm not trying to make things seem dire, since it's likely we are to experience we've already experienced some of the biggest, hardships that the Saturn and Uranus square is really offering. But now that Jupiter's leaving, it means that we're not really seeing things as realistically, right? The drive for expansion might be so great that we're willing to deny the truth in order to expand the visions of, transcending from these last years of potential feelings of despair, right? Of things not growing as quickly as we want them to. But it means that that Saturn Uranus story is kind of more, I don't know, in a way, the load is less lightened, right? It's like a heavier load on just Saturn. So, Saturn is a planet of rigidity on some level. And so that we could see things cracking. And, maybe that's a good thing down the road, because we have to accept that just being rigid and hard is not, hard edges are not the solution to everything. But it does mean that changes are going to occur, and changes that are going to create tension, right? So this is not to make Jupiter entering Pisces into this hard, cold negative. I'm not saying that. In fact, Jupiter entering Pisces is likely the most positive signal that next year is to be this big, great year of growth and possibility. I'm just saying that without Jupiter helping Saturn out, there's this potential for the grace that's been keeping things together by maybe a string on some levels to be lost on some matters, and to not be available until Jupiter enters Aries again in the spring of next year, to kind of, get things done again, to take some action, to just to see the potentials, see what actions need to be done in order to do the next thing, right? So it becomes more Mars-like. So all I can say is that I think it's going to be a good number of months to shift our perspectives, to maybe even focus a bit again on some dreams and visions, to have some positivity, some optimism, to put gravity to the growth we want to ensure. But I think it's also important to still maintain a level of grip on reality. Not to just get caught up in the fantasies we want to see grow, right? The dreams that we're so attached to. That we're still living in a world gripped by problems that will not go away if we just ignore or pray them away. We still have to live in the world. Hopefully we can see that. We also have to live with one another too, regardless of the circumstances this world is going through. So it's an important thing to recall compassion at this time, even in the more dire of times, actually, to get ourselves out of our own way, to connect with something greater than ourselves that wants us to live in peace of mind. But that takes work on our part. We can't just leave the work all up to the universe or God, so to speak. On some level, we have to do the work. That's in our hands, that's our responsibility, but it's the results that we have to turn over. And that's the hardest part. And that's really what the Jupiter is really trying to say, is that we can get a better perspective on things, but Saturn is saying, you have to do the work if you want the results. And Jupiter offers results, but it may not be always what we're looking for, right? So Jupiter entering Pisces to me is about turning over the results of things, to just do the work, do the next right thing, trust that what we're doing is enough. And even if we don't get the results we're looking for, we can trust that there's something greater going on. We just have to practice faith. And Jupiter entering Pisces is all about, regaining some faith, really. And if you could connect with something more spiritual, your spiritual practice, I think this Jupiter ingress into Pisces conjoining with Neptune is going to be really potentially very positive, especially for our spiritual practice, for getting that faith back, redeeming some faith, reclaiming some faith in terms of some of the hardships we've been through in the last year. So I think, you know, we have to try to practice that faith, allow for that process to take place, and trust the process. So I'm already on Wednesday, so I'm just going to go right into it. Some of the big things kind of like happening today. We have, you can see here that Mercury and Venus are conjoining. Mercury is also entered into its shadow period, right? So that's the 24-degree marker of Capricorn. Mercury is going to retrograde in Aquarius and then go back into Capricorn and then go back. So there's something about, you know, what is happening in communications, conversations, exchanges, deals made, monetary deals, things that are happening in the markets, you know, in terms of systems, in terms of traditions, in terms of realities of things, in terms of the worldly, you know, tactile potentials, you know, these Capricorn things, things that are more about efficiency of things working well, getting our emotions out of the way, maybe more trying to be more conscious of the reality of things. And then also that Venus story, the relational parts that are kind of ungluing and not really going according to plan, our desires in our own way. So there's something about the conjoining of those two planets, Mercury entering into its shadow, which tells us that the Mercury retrograde is related to, on some level, this Venus story. It's related to this Capricorn story. It's related to what's happening with Saturn, trying to maintain control, losing support from Jupiter, you know, things kind of being a little bit like uncertain. There's an uncertainty principle, and Mercury being there to try to negotiate, to bring into conversation things, and knowing that there's going to be some snafus coming up. The themes that come up in exchanges and conversations are going to have to be gone back over again, right? We're going to have those conversations again. We're going to have to be clear on what we're saying again. We're going to have to maybe deal with some technology issues, things like that. Those are going to have to be caught up again, right? And Mercury conjoining with retrograde Venus in Capricorn, you know, it's really one of the last, it is on some levels a positive transit, in my opinion. Venus and Mercury coming together is positive because, you know, it's like loving conversation. It's reciprocal, loving conversation and thinking even. It's trying to connect with love and compassion again in our words and our thoughts. You know, try to understand that, you know, things are not ideal. So, you know, it's one of the last really positive, creative, harmonizing, and common ground finding transits of the year. This is the two planets merging in a bodily union, which hasn't happened since May of 2021. So again, something about May, the spring, that was when Jupiter was in Pisces again, something about that, the things opening up back that time. Some of the things that we are desiring coming into conversation again, some of the things we're exchanging or trying to make deals about at that time, that's kind of like coming into the picture on some level. Maybe it's not with the same players, but it's like those themes are coming up. So this is like, you know, it's a loving, reciprocal, mending, conversational exchange and thinking. Often when these two planets get together, there's a chance to reconnect in a conversation about a relationship that may have gone astray. Doesn't mean there's a quick fix to things, especially with Venus retrograde. It also doesn't mean things will go the way we want them to, again, Venus retrograde, but it may mean there's a chance to reconnect, to find common ground, to communicate in a healthy, or at least, you know, loving, harmonious, reciprocal manner. On the flip side, if what you're used to in relationships has been going in a different direction with the Venus retrograde, this may be a transit when you can touch base with how that's going. to reground, to readdress, and find new ground to collaborate and maybe make things work or come to an agreement, right? Even if it's one that's going to have to be gone back over again, you know, a working agreement. So otherwise, I think this is a generally pretty positive, albeit brief transit, one that suggests easier, lighter, more harmonious conversations, collaborations, communications, news and information, maybe even exchanges in markets, games being played, right? We're thinking about Venus and Capricorn. It's like the game is being played differently. So this is nice on the level, especially since it happens not long after Venus leaves the exact conjunction with Pluto. And it's a sign to me that there is a way of communicating again about what's going on, to find a way of bringing oneself out of the darkness or the underworld, and that through collaboration, teamwork, communication, and reciprocity, we can find a way to deal with some of the more challenging themes as they come to Venus-related topics. Plus, not long after, Mercury's also making the conjunction with Pluto, which to me suggests there's something learned or communicated now that's going to assist in the navigating of more troublesome, brooding Pluto topics that are kind of boiling up, right? So yeah, it makes for Wednesday kind of a big day. Other things going are that we can see also that the moon is now, it's now, like I said, it's in a different conversation with the Capricorn stellium, but it's also reactivating the Saturn square. So, you know, maybe that's just about, you know, we're in a more sensitive place. We're in a feeling of things being kind of out of line. We're trying to find some common ground in those Venus related topics, but we're also kind of getting in touch with the realities of the outside world that, you know, maybe this is not the time for things that we're really wanting. It's more of a time for insecurity back into our emotional states, into our environments, to our day-to-days, to the things around us that may not be feeling as secure as we want them to. Maybe there's, you know, this drive for new growth, new landscapes being found. But you know, now that Jupiter is in Pisces, it's going to be square to the moon's ruler, Mars. There's some tension there too, because there may be too much push for that. And you know, moon being in that Mars ruled sign, reactivating the Saturn Uranus square, it's kind of like, okay, I'm a bit overwhelmed by this. Things are kind of bigger than maybe we anticipated. And it's about finding that we can find security and to some of the string pulling, some of the hopes of what coming out, and the sudden disruptiveness of things between Scorpio first phase of life, and the tension that increases from delays, backs, things not going to plan, denials, that with connection to Saturn. And Mars is also sex. It may feel more or that there is that disappointment, denials of reality on some level. I think there are healthy collaborations that Mars does rule over the moon. There is a way in which we can try to find a way to us trying to drive towards, realize is a reality. This is the Mars square as really like a hard Mars is a healthy collaboration. Under that, oh, I just do now. Let's slow things that get more realistic. Let's be more with the reality of things to the pictures, knowing that it's at time for things to go the way we want them to. Yet we can take some steps once to get some more output. Mars goes into Capricorn, it's an invitation. Feel like, okay, maybe I can do even more. There's more energy to do things. There's more respect, more taking more action, driving, doing the work, doing more work that will come. So for Thursday, things first, yeah, Moon trine to Neptune. So yeah, I think again, it's just saying that we are really for something more like, a bit more lighter, a bit more futuristic, a bit more themes, touching our fantasies, wanting to that, hoping that vulnerabilities, security environments, and states, understanding that there is some fun, trying to bring some more balance into that Capricorn story, that we can try to get romance back into us, feeling a bit more sensitive, you know, feeling a bit more emotionally hard. And yeah, we also so powerful going on, something that is deep, dark, you know, in relationships, transforming and transmuting the way we're finding pleasure, relating, peace. Mercury with Pluto, after having been through the conjunction with retreat Venus, it is suggesting that something under it is now being navigate the more deep, disturbing disclosure that is intensifying the setting, right? So this to me suggests that minds going through information, the information intensifying, the conversation is going to the world, something is disclosed that is the way we're thinking, communicating, changing. You know, this isn't in transit. It's all about figuring out and navigating the month and into next year. So it is flavor come, and it suggests you next month or two as well, when Mercury also is going to in Aquarius return to Capricorn another 2 times. So something that's being revealed now in thinking, messages, even something coming up there, news could say that you know, we're going to have to take over. So I think this is suggesting that this first conjunction with Pluto is disclosing something secret or it's really powerful, transformative, cathartic, and to process that, to re-examine that early part next year. So, you know, perfect second corner, Steve on third, really just connecting to the mass communication. It's Venus conjunction. What happened during Venus conjunction? Maybe now we're thinking about it more clearly. We have new information, information that's kind of coming up that was unseen before, bringing a perspective on things that we didn't realize, that we have to go back over again, we have to think about differently. And with the moon making the sextile to it, it's at least saying that like there is some adjustments that can be made from our environment, that help to soothe things, or at least bring some peaceableness to it in a subtle way, maybe not very powerful way, but at least in a way that makes it less harsh, less demanding, less scary, maybe even, because we're already in a place where we're feeling a bit vigilant, and it is in a good sign-based collaboration with Jupiter. So there is some feeling of like things are growing again. There is a potential for things But first we have to deal with and have conversations that are not necessarily easy. And so maybe we're in a place that is a bit more sensitive, a bit more vulnerable, and that's helping to create an environment where harder conversations can be had. The moon is also going to conjoin with the south node, right? So a newly ingressed nodal into the south node, north node now are in Taurus and Scorpio. So this is the first time that the moon is conjoining with the south node in Scorpio. So there's something about like a decrease or a untangling of some kind, untangling of harder emotional vulnerabilities. Maybe this is just like us trying to let go of the power of the control over emotional states of the environment, just kind of releasing ourselves of thinking that we have power over those things. You know, the ruler of Scorpio, Mars, is really in this, and now it's also hit now this 12-degree range. So this is where the solar eclipse happened at 12 degrees 22 minutes of Sagittarius. So something about that Sagittarius eclipse, the moon's connecting with the south node, where the eclipses happen, that releasing a decision to release something, to let go of something, that's now coming up, right? So Mars is triggering that too. And moon connecting to the south node is like really feeling that maybe that that shift of Mars, you know, that shift that we made, the decision we made to do something we're dreaming about, to release ourselves to something that hasn't been there for a bit, to get some inspiration again, to drive, to have more adventure, to feel like we're going towards our visions again. This is being triggered on some level. It's maybe saying like there's still more work to be done. There's still things that are not as they should be. We can't fix all the problems right now. And I think like the moon connecting with the south node is saying like, okay, like this is something that I have to let go of. I have to release this sense of control. And then the moon moves into Sag. So, you know, we get that energetic, that mood shift. The moon is now in Sagittarius also for the first time since the nodes have left Gemini and Sag. So things may feel different. Things feel maybe more settled in a way. Things feel like they're ready to do something different. They're ready to take part in whatever Mars is initiated. You know, Mars hitting that eclipse degree, right? As well as Jupiter's recent ingress to Pisces. Now moon is in a Jupiter ruled sign. We're really feeling that big shift into new territory. Mars is in that Jupiter ruled sign. It's also immediately square to Jupiter. It's signaling a recognition of the challenges that are coming with that newly expansive, blissed out, redeemed Jupiter, who's ready to free things up, watery domicile, bring hope, faith, visions to life. Still the moon square to Jupiter alongside Mars by sign. You know, Mars is now square to Jupiter by sign. It's going to show that even though things may be growing, getting softer, buoyant, emergent, they're also revealing something kind of overwhelming or short-sighted about those visions of the future. This to me feels like even though we're ready for something bigger, brighter, dream fulfilling, it's likely that that's a long way from becoming materialized. And with Mars hitting the eclipse trigger point, I really feel like it's this may be this beginning to the long haul shift into new, brighter territories, right? So typically eclipses can take up to 6 months to materialize. The doors that have been closed or open, the reality of what's changing, settling in. And by that time, Jupiter will be in Aries, right? So Mars is Mars's domicile, which to me suggests that there's something about Mars, what Mars is doing, something about what is being initiated now, rather than what was dreamed up during the eclipse 4 weeks prior, that is going to play a bigger role in what the eclipse has been really all about. And now that the moon has joined with Mars and Sag for the first time since the eclipse, it's also as though we are understanding that, we're integrating that, we're feeling that, allowing that to sink into our reality. And this is about understanding that our dreams, that for our dreams to become reality, there's more work to be done. Just because we want it doesn't mean it's going to come true. Whatever it is we're driving for, wanting more inspiration from, wanting to free ourselves from the lacking, we have to understand that it's not over yet. We can't just pray it into existence, right? We have to do work. So that's it for Thursday. Let's move into Friday. So main things just happening. It's basically just a lunar day, which is nice for New Year's Eve, right? Moon sextile to Saturn. Maybe we just have a better relationship to some of the rules and regulations going on. Moon's also conjoining with Mars. So there's some kind of deeper understanding about what needs to be done, what actions need to be taken. It's in a Jupiter ruled sign, so something about understanding that there's a bigger picture going on, there's a bigger story going on, there's things external to ourselves going on, having that connection to Mars and the connection to Saturn. To me, that's just saying that like this New Year's, we're going to have to understand that, you know, there are some boundaries to be played out. We can't just force our way into things. It's going to be frustrating, you know, conjoining with Mars. Mars is a planet of frustrations, but at least it will be in some capacity understood, not completely off the handles, maybe, so to speak, right? Like I wouldn't expect something direly terrible to go on. That said, I think people are going to be frustrated. They're not going to be able to do what they want to do necessarily. But at least we're in a more positive collaboration with those rules and regulations, with the systems of control, with the boundaries going on in the world that, although it's not necessarily what we're wanting to do, it may be that we're at least not going to try to break the system to do it, right? So. And that's it for Friday. Let's just move into Saturday. Happy New Year's, everyone, by the way. So January 1st, 2022. You know, first things first, Moon's now square to Neptune. Maybe the fantasy is not meeting the reality we're in. We didn't get to, you know, have that big New Year's kiss we were looking for, or maybe we made poor decisions, you know, like every time there's a connection with Neptune, we have to understand there is this potential for overdoing it with substance abuses. So there is a potential for feeling now the rose-colored glasses coming off. You know, the hangover settle in. It's like, it's gonna hurt. You know, with Moon coming off the conjunction of Mars, it's a bit like, we just like push and push to do something we wanted to do. Maybe we tried to do it in terms of the boundaries there, but we felt like, oh, we can just do what we want with Jupiter now in Pisces, and now the veil's coming off, where the rose-colored glasses are coming off, and we're kind of waking up in the mess, or we're waking up in the hangover, so to speak. Or it just may be that we're, you know, like the Moon is going to square to, it's engaging with the square to Neptune right when, you know, New Year's happens. So it may just be that the fantasy we want, the transcendence of the mundane, the romantic experience we're looking for, it's maybe not happening, or it's not meeting our expectations, or we want it, but we can't get it. Something like that. Sun is trine to Uranus at this time. So there is something positive about maybe this Venus story, the Venus retrograde story, something in relationships, something about readdressing the systems by which we're playing this games of life, the discipline, the structures, the plan that we had in place. There is something supportive from that to maybe getting liberated, from breaking free, from doing things out of the norm, from doing things differently, seeing things differently, trying to liberate ourselves from the setbacks of things, from things being too in control. We may be able to find a new support for how we're understanding things, bringing things into light regarding the Venus retrograde story, regarding this Capricorn story, Pluto and the revelations we had, those messages or the information that came through that was hard, that was cathartic to deal with, transformative on some level, that is maybe bringing some support to thinking outside the box, to having a perspective that's a bit different, maybe doing something unexpected, some sort of unexpected event brings a bit of a support or something to that story, or the story we're in brings some sort of support to allowing for something exciting and different to occur. So yeah, and then we just kind of go through the day at that point, and then the moon moves into Cap, right? So, now it's another energetic mood shift. Also, new moon vibes are in effect. Now the moon is co-present with that Capricorn stellium. Things are a bit more mysterious, less emotional, a bit more stern or stoic or steely, trying to just do the thing we need to do. Maybe this is cleaning up the party, so to speak. Moon is also co-present with the Capricorn stellium right now. So we're kind of back where we started. The moon has not been here since Venus conjoined with Pluto, right? So what has changed in that time? What revelations have been made? What disruptions have occurred? What commitments have been broken? How is the plan that we once felt so good about needing to be readdressed and re-intimated in order for us to feel good about what is happening, not only in our Capricorn area of life, but also in terms of the Venus retrograde and the overall Venus story from these last 5 weeks since Venus entered shadow, which, by the way, is the exact degree that the sun is presently radiating on. So what is illuminating itself about this Capricorn story? Both the lights are now co-present in the sign. One is actually on the degree of the Venus shadow, while the other is closing up a lunar cycle that's been anything but what we expected. So what do we have enough insight about right now? What can we feel to reveal to ourselves in a more nurturing way? What can we really understand, see, take stock of, and gain wisdom about, so that we can feel good about what it is we are about to close up and begin taking the next steps towards? What exactly are we going to be doing and doing next in a plan that we have to rework, right? Mercury's going to retrograde back in a year or two. So something about this plan, this reworking of the plan, readdressing of the plan, re-intimating of the plan, rethinking of the plan, that now that the lights are both there, we have as much, we have as much illumination as possible on that subject. This is where we're going to have a chance to really see things and to make a new decision. So, how are things going to move forward from there? Meanwhile, Venus is gearing up to also perfect in the Cazimi. That's going to take place later this week, moving into the fiery hearted sun, purging something about the last 1.5 years of Venus related matters, as well as Venus related matters pertaining to the sign of Capricorn, right? So, sorry, Venus Cazimi is next week, my bad. So something closing up in Venus related matters, a new beginning is taking place, a new rebirth in Venus related matters. And now we're really feeling this, a middle ground in the story. Something is about to begin anew. We can feel that. We're ready for something different to the story, to be felt, to be recognized, to be reciprocated, to be related to be intimate with, to clearing up the facts from the fiction. There's more to come from this overall story. And as the moon enters Capricorn, we're recognizing that things we've been struggling with in Venus ruled matters are nowhere near finished. And the waiting, the evaluating, the hoping, the expecting, the superficial balancing act is no longer working. It's time to begin anew. It's time for us to get real with ourselves, get serious, let go of emotions in this decision, and do what needs to be done in order to move forward. So I really think what this new moon is coming into is, and probably I should have saved it to talk about it when we looked at the new moon, but it's time to be more efficient and just do the next right thing. And moon's also sextile to Jupiter. So that's another good sign to this ingress. Although the moon is in exile or detriment, it doesn't have the resources it needs to, get emotional environment met on some level. It is in good alignment with Jupiter. So there's something about feeling good about what sort of we're seeing about the systems of the plan, the way the system's working, the way that we're working the system that needs to be worked, and seeing that that's going to be good for the future. So let's go into Saturday. Hold on. For some reason, Astrology always does that, changes it to, changes it to like minutes rather than hours. Anyway, so first things first, on January 2nd, Mercury moves into Aquarius. It's a big shift. It's a big shift in our thinking and exchanges of communications. Now they're more this Aquarius story, the Saturn world story. So we're getting more in touch with the future, getting more in touch with the potentialities, the feigned appearances, the politics, the world outside ourselves, the insider outsider paradigm, the big Saturn Uranus story. Now we're thinking more about that. We're communicating maybe more about that. We're making decisions on that. We're taking a stance in some things. We're taking a position in some things that have changed since the last Saturn Uranus square, since the one before that, the last time Mercury was in a fixed sign. We're thinking differently about, we have new decisions made on that. We're feeling differently about the whole thing altogether. And with the moon getting ready for that, the new moon just around the corner, it's really happening today on Sunday, January 2nd. And so maybe we're just like getting more in touch with that Saturn thing. It's like the hard reality, the hardships of things, that things are not going to go as quickly as we want them to. We have to slow down a bit, or we have to think about things from a bigger future oriented perspective. And sometimes that means just dealing with the things that are at hand, making decisions that need to be made, agreements and things like that, because we're going to have to go back over this again, right? Now, Mercury's going to have to go retrograde through this again. So it's something about what we're seeing now, maybe communications we're having now in terms of that Saturn story, the Aquarius story. This is also where the great conjunction happens. So feeling more in tune and thinking more about and having conversations about how things have changed since the end of 2020 and where we're at in that, and having to come into new communications about that, thinking outside the box, trying to take a position, find our place in the world as we maybe come to a new conscious decision, a new exchangeable communicative place where our thoughts and where our minds are on how things are going in the world and where are we each in that, right? So that's a big shift. It's not one that's going to be over yet. We're going to go over that again, I think, later when Mercury goes retrograde, but it's really coming into the picture. It's coming into our minds now. It's maybe coming into our conversations more about what are we going to do in relation to that? What are we going to do, or what sorts of exchanges, what sort of investments, what sort of decisions are we going to make, communications are we going to have, thinking strategies, skills that we need to learn in order to deal with that. Are we going to change our skills? What sort of things are we going to do next, right? So now we're thinking more about that, and we're going to have to go back over that again. Maybe some of these initial thoughts we're having will inform the ultimate decision we make in the long run. Moon is also in a trine today with Uranus as it prepares for that new moon. So I'm really just going to talk about the new moon and how that outsider perspective, that different way of thinking about things, maybe being a bit more inventive about things that were supportive from the sun making the trine to Uranus. Now the moon's making the trine to Uranus, so we're feeling a little bit more of like what sort of things that were outside the box are supporting things now, supporting the end of the cycle, supporting a new decision to be made, a new intentions to be set. Things are starting anew. We have a new chance to do the story differently. It's a new lunar cycle. It means that there's a new beginning to be had. It's time to, make decisions on what can be next, try to be a bit more efficient about that. Like I was saying with when the moon entered in Capricorn, it's like, it's just about figuring out what the next right thing to do is. We don't have to have it all figured out yet. There's not all the pieces in place to have everything going according to plan. So it's like, how can we make adjustments? How can we make alignments that are going to be in positive alignment with some of the bigger picture things we're moving towards, some of the things we want to bring our dreams towards, but also in terms of you know, what's going on in the here and now as it pertains to relationships, as it pertains to reciprocity, engagements with others that are not going according to plan. We're not getting what we want. So what can we do now that's a new beginning, something that's going to help us make a decision about Capricorn related things in terms of like, you know, getting more serious about things, trying to be more resourceful with things, thinking about the goals we want to have, try to get more goal oriented. If we haven't made any goals for this year, maybe it's a good time to get those down on paper, make good decisions about what do we want to accomplish in 2022? Do we have the resources to do that? Are we a little bit caught up in some other stories that are not really helping us right now? You know, now that Mercury's in Aquarius too, maybe our thoughts are a little bit more oriented to Saturn ruled topics. And I think like with the new moon in a Saturn ruled sign, it's something about, you know, what's going on in the bigger world, what's going on in terms of the future, what's going to actually help us versus hinder us, and what sort of hardships are we going to face in that? Like, be realistic about that and try to make new goals, new intentions in this lunar cycle over the next 4 weeks that will at least help us to get on track with a plan that's going to help us to work towards a better relationship with reality, a more realistic and healthier relationship with reality, as that's going to help us move into the future. So that's it for Sunday. Let's just move into Monday. And Monday really closes the week off with the moon just conjoining with Pluto, and the moon conjoins with Venus, then the moon conjoins with Pluto. We're getting back in touch with that Venus retrograde story. Venus has moved far enough away from Pluto now that some of the intensity, the deep, dark, cathartic stuff, it's far enough away from the relationship, from the loving parts, the more sensual parts, the more compassionate parts, that we can try to engage with that again from a place where we're feeling more realistic about things. We're feeling like, okay, things are not exactly what we wanted. They're not going the way we expected them to, but they're not something I have to be letting control my life, right? There's things that I can do to move forward. That engagement with Pluto, you know, the conjunction with Pluto may just be us getting back in touch with what's been revealed since the Pluto Venus conjunction. What was revealed this week during the Mercury Pluto conjunction? What is it about what Pluto is bringing to the surface that has been hidden and under the surface, something deep, cathartic, transformative? Now we're feeling that, we're integrating that. We're getting back in touch with what was happening the last time the moon was there, when we got a preview of the Venus-Pluto conjunction, the Venus retrograde, when now we're like, okay, we're in a different place right now. We don't have to let this shatter our world. We're in a process of transformation, re-engaging with that in a way that is at least a bit more goal-oriented, a little bit more realistic, having a chance to relate to it in a way that's not going to destroy us, right? So trying to have some more emotional distance from it. And then the moon moves into Aquarius and it conjoins with Mercury. So, you know, energetic shift, mood shift, the environment is shifting. It's getting in touch with that Saturn ruled story, the trends, the progress, the you know, the insider outsider paradigm. What position are we taking? We're feeling that more directly now. Where are we on that? Where are we standing on that? Maybe it's something to do with that Pluto conjunctions of Mercury and Moon. Maybe something was revealed that we didn't expect, we didn't think was such a problem about where our position was. And now we have to think about that more clearly. And we're feeling that. We're feeling that this is like bringing up tensions between the Taurus, Aquarius parts of our life parts of our lives that we didn't think were as personal problem, as intimate as problem. But now that all the planets are getting, they're moving in there, once the sun moves in there too, that's gonna be a bigger part of the story. But with Mercury and the moon there, now there's more planets there, there's more emphasis there, there's more personal things going on in terms of that bigger picture story. Maybe we didn't realize that some of the ways that we were speaking about things, some of the things that we were doing in things, some of our environment of things we were relating to the environment was causing as much disruption as we thought it was. And now that the moon has joined Mercury in Aquarius, we're thinking more about what's our position on these things, especially in terms of things going on in the world. Some of these more tense producing topics, politics, the divisions in the world that are being disrupted, the rebelliousness versus the holding things together, the structures versus the breaking of structures, the rebellion versus the control. Maybe some of the things we've been saying on that, some of the positions we've been saying on that have caused disruptions and things. There's tension there, and now we're just feeling that more. We have to think about it differently. We are thinking about it now more than we were before. We're feeling it too. It's taking more place in an intimate, more environmental way. We can't just avoid these topics. Maybe they're having an effect on those relationships, the Venus ruled topics that we didn't realize maybe they had as much of an effect as they do. And now now that they're on the surface, we're thinking about them. They may be something that we have to engage with in a more healthy way, not just ignoring them, not just believing that if we pray and focus on the future, everything's going to go away and get better. We have to make a position, something that's going to work for us, but that will be accepting of the fact that maybe some of those positions we take create tensions, create realizations that although are higher, are dividing, right? And and that really brings us into the new year, is that we need to work again on our position in things. How is that affecting our relationships? Has it affected our relationships? Is the things we're saying in relation to that going to benefit us or not? And being more realistic with that. And so that's really it for this week's report. The moon just is getting closer to Saturn, so there's something about the systems of control that are becoming a more intimate in our environments, getting back to maybe where things were at even a month ago when Jupiter's no longer there. So, back to the 8th, 9th of December, when moon was in Aquarius, Jupiter was there to help things out, but now it's not. So maybe we're just feeling that absence again. The grace is gone for now. So I'm going to close this up, bring this back to the home screen here. Yeah, it's an energetic week. It's a very energetic week. It's also a new year, so there's a lot of intimate things happening, plans that we had that are not necessarily going to work out. We have to get more realistic with that. And I've been talking about this winter for months now, that it's not going to be what we expected it to be. So, now we have to kind of work with that. We have to engage with it in a more healthy way. And that really is the truth of spirituality. That's what Jupiter's trying to reveal to us, that perspective that spirituality is really about a healthy relationship with reality. So that's it for this week, guys. Next week, we got the second Venus-Neptune sextile. I'm not going to get so into that, but the big thing really is the Venus Cazimi and Capricorn. So that's really setting a new beginning for Venus-related matters. It's purging some of the things from the last 1.5 years related to relationship, love, aesthetic, beauty, balance, peace, justice. All these Venus-ruled matters are getting a new beginning of some kind. It's not going to come with realization. There's a lot to be burned off, a lot to be purged. So it's about letting the past go going into the future. And that's what all these transits this week are all about. It's like, how do we go into the future and bring peace back into it, right? And then we got that first quarter moon, first challenges to intentions and goals we've set, the lunar cycle, and then Sun also sextiles with Neptune. So next week's a bit of a lighter week than this week. I don't know if I'm going to do the report yet or not, just because maybe I need a bit of a break too. So let's see how it goes. But if I'm here, maybe I'll just mostly focus on that Venus Cazimi. So anyway, thanks everyone for being here. I wish everyone the best. I wish everyone the happiest of New Year's, a bright future into 2022. I'm going to keep going on these reports keep going with the reports as long as I can. Like I said, maybe not next week, but let's see, maybe I need a break too. But otherwise, I wish you all the best. I really appreciate all your support this year, all the new clients, everything. It's been such a dream come true for me. So I really love doing this work, and I want to keep coming back. So thank you all for being there with me on this journey. I'm really grateful. Thank you. So until then, I wish you all the best. Happy New Year, and bye for now.